My client just cost themselves $350,000 by promoting the wrong person again. If you've ever promoted your top salesperson to sales manager and watched them crash and burn, or given your longest tenured employee a leadership role only to see half the team start looking for new jobs, this episode might save you from making that same expensive mistake. Here's what nobody talks about. Some people are just not wired to lead. And that's completely okay. But the cost of not acknowledging this reality and letting ineffective leadership drag on, it's massive. The other side of this coin is we keep promoting people for the wrong reasons. We reward performance instead of leadership DNA. We promote performance instead of capability, performance, and DNA. And we convince ourselves that someone will step up when we know they probably won't. And while we're waiting for that magical moment for them to become the leader we need them to be, we're bleeding talent, momentum, morale, and profits. And that is why today we're talking about how to stop making these expensive mistakes and what to do if you've already made one like my client did. Make sure to stick around till the very end because this episode is jam-packed with tangible advice to grow and scale your business and have the freedom you started it for. Welcome to the Biz Doctor Podcast, my love letter to business owners the world over. I'm your host, Lauren Goldstein, award-winning business consultant and advisor fondly nicknamed the Biz Doctor by my clients. I help business owners who are burning the candle at both ends diagnose what is actually keeping them buried in the day-to-day busy work, and then formulate a treatment plan to adjust their business and team to fit them, so they can take a breath and a vacation and have more fun making a bigger impact than ever. So grab your favorite beverage and your earbuds and let's dive into our latest episode. Look, I get it. Promoting from within feels right. You want to reward loyalty. You want to believe in people's potential. And honestly, it's often easier than going through the whole hiring process to find external leadership. But here's what I've learned in 14 years of working with business owners. There's a massive difference between wanting someone to be a leader and them actually having the DNA to lead effectively. Let me pull back the curtain and tell you what happened with my client's $350,000 promotion mistake. Earlier this week, I was on an exit interview call with an employee leaving their team. By the end of our conversation, 4 things were crystal clear. He was an A player stuck in a worker bee role. He wasn't set up for success. He tried for 18 months to make it work, and his manager was 95% of the reason he was leaving. His exit wasn't about money, benefits, or workload. This guy was leaving because he was a player stuck under a worker bee manager that was killing his soul, one micromanaged project at a time. Now, let me pause here for a second in case you're new to the podcast and do not know about my philosophy on players versus worker bees. Let me explain the critical difference because once you know this, it will change everything about how you manage your team and how you look at who's on your team. So players create profits. Worker bees are expenses. A player comes with a plan. They're the people who get the big picture, the greater vision, and you say, I have a goal, and they say, great, I have a plan. They're proactive, they run with you, and it's so much fun because they're even starting to anticipate things before you even think of it. I love it because they're the expert coming to you. Instead of, on the other side, when you have a worker bee, you're often thinking, sweet Jesus, if I have to tell you what to do one more time, I might just walk out the door. Most worker bees struggle with critical thinking or thinking outside of task lists. They get stuck in the details, and they do work best with tasks instead of projects. They also tend to not be self-motivated, so you end up doing 2 people's jobs, yours, and then thinking of things for them to do. And when I say self-motivated, yes, a lot of them are hard workers. That's not what I'm saying. When I say self-motivated, it's about looking for other things to do outside of what you've been given to do. I'll give you a great example. Many years ago, I came in and I did a diagnostic in a financial services firm. And as I was interviewing the team, I asked one of the employees, I said, hey, when so-and-so has not given you stuff to do and you've completed your to-do list, tell me what you do with your time. And she said, bless her heart, Oh, I go on Facebook and Instagram and I'm working on my real estate license. So I go and I do some modules for that. Bless. I mean, on one hand, I love that I'm the kind of person that people tell their deepest, darkest secrets to. But on the other hand, you're kidding me. Instead of thinking of things that you could get ahead of or other projects or tasks to do, this person was screwing around on social media and doing something completely unrelated to her job. This perfectly illustrates a worker bee. Now, it might seem like I'm hating on worker bees, but I'm really not. I love worker bees. But here's the thing that I want you to take away from this. Worker bees are necessary on teams, but only if, here's the key, you have players managing them. You, as the business owner, should never be managing a worker bee. So back to my client. What exactly happened here? Well, long story short, they put a worker bee in charge of a player. To put it bluntly, they committed organizational suicide. The cost over 18 months with just this one departing player was $350,000. But if you multiply that across team morale, productivity loss, frustration, other people who are now questioning whether they want to stay, you're looking at the kind of damage that could take years to recover from. And the worst part? My client had promoted this person's manager, hoping that they'd step up and grow into the role. You ever done that? I know I have. That was until I figured out how to promote the right way, and then everything changed, which is what I'm talking about with you today. Let me go back to that exit interview I mentioned before. This wasn't about pay, workload, or even the leadership culture at the top. The reason this player was leaving came down to a few catastrophic leadership failures of his manager. Lack of trust from his manager, feedback that never came, concerns that went unaddressed, promises that quickly disappeared, and a manager who stifled growth instead of developing a leader. But here's the one thing that truly broke the dam, the cardinal sin. The manager delegated a project to him, told him he could lead it, and then took it back, never actually letting him lead it. And it didn't just happen once, it happened over and over and over again. So when I asked this person who was leaving on a scale of 1 to 10, how well were your strengths utilized? His answer was a 2. A 2. That's not just a miss, that's a red flag waving in neon lights. This kind of Indian giving behavior kills motivation faster than anything. This manager's micromanagement, conflicting messages about ownership, and completely opposite personality style created the perfect storm for disengagement. Here's the expensive reality. My client had a manager that they wanted to succeed, but the truth was this person was not cutting it, and leadership was abdicating their responsibility as a leader. They kept hoping this manager would step up. They heard the employees' concerns, but didn't actually step in to address the issue with the manager. They ostriched for 18 months, hoping things would improve. And then the dam broke. This is what I call leadership abdication. When we as business owners avoid making the hard decision about who can actually lead. So we either promote the wrong person or keep waiting for someone to become something they're not. And the cost? It's not just theoretical, as you saw. This one was a doozy at $350,000 with just one employee. Multiply that across your team, and you start to see why getting leadership right isn't optional. With that in mind, let's talk about who you need to stop promoting. It's possible I'm going to step on some toes here, but someone needs to say this. First, the golden child, your top performer, your star salesperson who crushes quotas, your tech genius who knows the system inside and out. Here's the painful truth. The skills that make someone excellent at doing the work as an individual contributor are completely different from the skills needed to lead people who do the work. I've watched superstars become mediocre managers and lose both their individual contribution and their leadership effectiveness. And oftentimes, your stars burn out and leave because they never should have been promoted in the first place. Next, the lifer, the person who's been there for, well, forever. Tenure equals institutional knowledge, not necessarily leadership DNA. Just because someone knows where all the bodies are buried doesn't mean they can lead the living. I've seen companies promote tenure veterans who still manage like it's 2015, driving away younger talent who feels stifled, or in the case of one of my other clients, promoting a lifer who actually really didn't like people. That was a doozy. The peacekeeper. Everyone's favorite person who never creates waves. Here's the thing. Leadership requires making unpopular decisions and having difficult conversations. And frankly, it's uncomfortable. Peacekeepers avoid conflict, which means problems fester and standards slip while your players get frustrated watching mediocrity get rewarded. The expert. Your technical genius. Management isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about developing other people to be smart. These folks often get frustrated when their teams can't perform at their level and end up micromanaging or doing the work themselves because their ego can't take it. Hello, this is definitely the persona of my client that I am talking about in this episode. The climber. The person who wants it most because they want the title and the quote-unquote respect. Ambition doesn't equal leadership DNA. Some people want management for the wrong reasons, the title, the money, the status. But if they don't have the natural ability to understand, coach, influence others, and develop people, all that ambition turns into frustration for everyone. Now, before we dive into the next section, here's an important caveat. I'm in no way saying that you should promote your mediocre performers or not promote someone who is a high performer. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you get to promote performance and DNA. Now that you know the 5 risky profiles, let's talk about what real leadership DNA actually looks like, because it's not what most people think. Real leadership DNA comes down to 2 core elements that you can't teach or fake. First, they understand that the number one job of a leader is to create other leaders. Not manage people, not delegate tasks, create other leaders. That means they're actively developing critical thinkers and problem solvers, not just telling people what to do. They get energized by watching someone on their team figure something out for themselves rather than needing to be the person with all the answers. Second, they have to be a world-class people decoder. They're genuinely skilled at understanding what makes each person tick, what drives them, what their unique motivations are, and how to pull the best out of them. They don't just care about people in some generic way. They're curious about each individual and driven by empowering their team. In addition to the above, here is a simple test to gauge if someone should be promoted or not. Before I promote anyone, I ask them 3 specific questions and they have to answer yes to all 3, otherwise I'm a no. First, do you know what you need to do to be successful in your role? Second, do you know what someone else needs to do to be successful in their role? Third, do you feel comfortable telling someone else what to do to be successful in their role? The reason why I love these questions is it tells you a lot about someone and the clarity necessary to not only succeed in their role, but as a leader. The harsh truth bears repeating. Being a leader and a manager is uncomfortable. It takes finesse, mentorship, coaching, and empowering. It's about creating leaders and critical thinkers and problem solvers, not just managing people. And they have to want to do this uncomfortable work. So ask them directly. Do you want to be responsible for somebody else's career development? Do you want to have difficult conversations about performance? Do you get excited about helping someone else succeed, even when it means they might outgrow their current role? Dig deep with them. They need desire, performance, and DNA because without it, all the leadership training in the world won't make them someone they aren't. One more quick caveat. Confidence and becoming a better, more effective leader can be taught and improved. But you just cannot change someone's DNA, which is why my contrarian hiring practice hires for DNA, not just resume experience. With my client, if we go all the way back to the beginning of this episode, no matter how much training, coaching, etc. came from the top, it just didn't land. Some people just aren't meant to lead, and that's okay. But you as the business owner and leader have to recognize who is or isn't meant to be a leader. And if you accidentally promoted someone that shouldn't be promoted, saying, okay, let's shift. Here's the thing. Everything is figure outable. And at any moment, if you need to shift, you can. And in this case, you must. I'll give you another great example. One of my clients, we were having a challenge with the team. And of course, you know me. I always go back to the root cause. And what was the common denominator? And in this case, it also came back to a manager. Are you seeing a trend here? Now, in this situation, there were some pretty tumultuous conflicts happening in the team. And it all came to a head in a pretty spectacular way that almost cost us this very valuable employee. When the business owner and I sat down and did a post-mortem of how the heck did we get here, what was really interesting is it came down to one of the employees who is an absolute stellar, amazing employee. And she had come to her manager, this manager in question, countless times about her concerns with another employee who happened to be her direct report. She was looking for advice, support, and it just wasn't getting dealt with. It wasn't getting escalated. It was, for all intents and purposes, getting swept under the rug and falling on deaf ears. So when we were doing their reorg for the next chapter of growth for this business, I asked my client the really tough question of, what is the cost of having this person continue to manage people? He wanted to have the title that showed his tenure and contribution, and we wanted to honor that, but we just couldn't have him continue to lead people. This particular person is invaluable to the business, far more effective as an individual contributor, and he would be a heck of a lot happier if he was not managing people. It would be a win-win, and yet my client was really concerned about how he would take it, which is why I think a lot of business owners don't have these tough conversations. It makes everyone uncomfortable. But that's the thing about being a leader. Sometimes it really sucks to have those hard conversations. But if you address it as a win-win, trust me, everybody is going to breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, back to the meat and potatoes. Thanks for sticking with me. This next part is for you if you've already made one of these promotion mistakes and now need to figure out how to get out of this sticky situation. First and foremost, if you've promoted the wrong person, fear not. You're not the only one. I've done it in the past. My clients have done it. I feel like it's actually a rite of passage. So if you're feeling guilty about a recent promotion that isn't working out, or you're lying awake wondering if you just ruined someone's career by putting them in a role they can't handle, I get it. Here's how to fix it. The first step is to acknowledge it. I think sometimes as human beings, we think that if we just ignore something, it will go away. I can tell you after 14 years of doing this, that is never true. It will come back and bite you in the ass faster than you realize. I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant, so acknowledge it. Go through your team and ask yourself the question of, is this person an effective leader? Do I want this person to continue being a manager and a leader? Get really clear on if you have set them up for success or failure, and if they're really meant to lead and manage. Ask the questions I talked about a bit earlier and get clear on who might be a victim of misguided promotion. Hopefully it's only one or two people that have popped in mind that we need to address. Then once you know who you need to talk to, you get to steel yourself and have that hard conversation. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is the part that sucks the most. I saw it happen 4 times with one of my fractional COO clients a few weeks after they brought me on board. When I came in and did my signature diagnostic to uncover the root causes of what had stalled growth and was plaguing retention, I started asking questions about different team members and managers, really digging in and asking the question of, why did this person get promoted? The answers I got were a lot of, well, we just needed somebody, or they wanted it, or something like that. Against my advice, this client did what I do not recommend. They demoted the people without a conversation, which sucks so much because demoted people rarely stay. So instead of having a knee-jerk, oh shit moment, I encourage you to really look at your people and ask how valuable is this person that you promoted that probably shouldn't have been promoted. If the answer is very valuable, which I hope it is, then sit with them and say, hey, I think we promoted you into leadership and management, and this might not actually be setting you up for success or what you want. So I want to have an honest conversation. What would a win-win look like to you, and would you be okay going back to being an individual contributor? You can phrase it a little bit differently because it's not necessarily if they want to stay, but giving them an out. The truth is you can't keep somebody who's an ineffective manager. You just can't. But in my experience, people who are truly valuable, who you value and want to stay will find a way to make it work and the shift seamless. There might be ripple effects or whispers, but we all have short memories, and as long as you as the leader manage the change with transparency and respect, it's a win-win. I'm going to start to wrap this up by illustrating how having these tough conversations also staves off the silent killer of teams, resentment. You know, my favorite saying is unshared expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. So let's take a little walk down memory lane as I tell you one last story of a client who was bleeding $150,000 a month as a result of promoting someone who should not have been promoted. This was a couple of years ago. I came into a $70 million business and did my diagnostic, sat down with the team, and was asking one of the department heads about his day-to-day and how he got there. He shared that when he got promoted, it was unexpected. He kind of just ended up there, and he felt like he was failing every day. And he also felt like he wasn't getting any support, like they just dropped him in the deep end and hoped he could swim. His team was also really not doing well. He was not doing well, and the department was bleeding $150,000 a month. So finally, through the course of this conversation, I got to the crux of it. He was resentful of everyone in leadership for putting him in this position, even though he confessed he did want the position. He did want the promotion. He was pissed, and rightfully so. He got promoted without support. And so he got what he wanted, but it was nothing like what he imagined, and he was feeling like he wasn't supported, and he was mad. Now, I don't often have a true hard line of someone needing to be let go unless they are infected by resentment. This is the one symptom that I will immediately fire someone for because it's very, very hard to come back from, and it infects the team faster than pink eye at preschool. So when my client and I did a postmortem, and I did their R&R, their results and recommendation, we realized that this person's bad management and ill-fated promotion cost the business a whopping $2 million total and 10 team members. The crazy thing is that this business was overperforming so much in another department that the internal bleeding of this department wasn't actually caught until I came in with fresh eyes. More to that, his manager never spoke up about his resentment. In fact, he told me when I asked why he didn't bring any of this up to anyone beside me, he said he quote unquote just wanted to figure it out on his own. So there's a lot to unpack there. I won't go into it. But he was essentially resentful he didn't have support, yet didn't speak up. Ay. Why do we want to be business owners? So I tell you this story because I want you to know that it can happen to anyone. Big, small, doesn't matter. We've all been there, but now you know better. You as the business owner need to proactively plan your team growth and promotion. It is so important to get clear on who is or isn't in the right seat, who is or isn't the best leader or manager, and to have the conversation. It's uncomfortable, but the pain of having the tough conversation is way better than the pain of regret and resentment, not to mention the literal and figurative costs. The other thing I want you to do that I've talked about in previous episodes is you need to have dual promotion tracks. One for individual contributors who can continue to grow, have more accountabilities, more responsibilities, and more success without leadership or management responsibilities. And then you create another path for leadership and management. Trust me, this will solve so many problems because most people want growth and recognition. They don't want to be stagnant, but you have to understand what kind of growth they want and set them up for success. Last but not least, going forward, I really want to encourage you to take a beat, take a breath, and start proactively promoting and hiring because it will change everything. Most business owners, and in fact, most of my clients come to me and aren't doing promotion or headcount planning proactively. It's all, I need somebody yesterday. And that is a recipe for mishires, misaligned expectations, which you know leads to resentment, and simply put, not having the best people you need. Now, in case you, like me, still worry about how this will impact your team morale, here's something else nobody really talks about. It isn't cruel to not make someone a manager or a leader. The person you don't promote to leadership, they get to stay in their zone of genius instead of struggling in a role that makes them miserable. Your team gets actual leadership instead of someone flailing around, and you stop bleeding money and talent. Now, I don't know about you, but I say that's a win-win-win. Good people sometimes aren't good leaders. It's not a character flaw. That's clarity. Your job is to recognize the difference and make decisions accordingly. Your leadership starts now, not next week. Give yourself permission to step in and make changes when leadership isn't working. Look at your recent promotions. Are they working? Like really working? If you've even a hint of doubt, schedule that conversation this week. Create those parallel advancement paths I mentioned. Stop making leadership or managing people the only way to advance or get recognition. And if you're considering promoting someone right now, ask yourself, do they have the performance, willingness, DNA, and do they have the genuine want to develop and manage people? If the answer is no, find another way to promote and recognize them that doesn't put your team's success at risk. Your people are watching to see if you'll make decisions based on what feels good or what actually matters. Or to put it more bluntly, promoting the right people instead of the loudest voices. They're watching to see if you'll prioritize their success over your discomfort with difficult conversations. Choose wisely. Your business and your sanity depend on it. If this conversation hits home for you, please share it with other business owners who might be struggling with the same thing. We've all been there, and sometimes just knowing you're not alone in wrestling with these messy bits of business makes all the difference. Find me on Instagram at It's Lauren Goldstein or on LinkedIn if you want to continue the conversation. I love hearing how these changes play out in your business. Remember, not everyone is meant to be a leader, and recognizing that isn't mean. It's the kindest thing you can do for everyone involved. I'll be waiting for you in the next episode. See you there. Thank you for listening to the Biz Doctor podcast. Now, I like to say that friends don't let friends WebMD your business. So if you're wondering what your next steps could be, here are some options for you. No matter what, head to the show notes or to my website, goldenkeypartnership.com, for some impactful resources to support you getting out from under your business. That's also where you'll find the links to learn more about our services and how we support business owners, just like you, who are ready to make the successful jump from business operator in the trenches to visionary business owner with more freedom and flexibility. All of that info is on our website, so pop on over to learn more or get in touch. goldenkeypartnership.com. Finally, if you love the Biz Doctor podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with your friends and network and give us a 5-star rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast.
An original
from Story Studio Network.